To meta or not to meta?
Man, get the fuck out of here, man. Let me tell you about Holy Priests. Holy Priest has some serious guns when it comes to healing numbers, and we will go through all of that in the video, plus talents, gear, essences, rotation, and a whole lot more, so stay tuned. Before hitting you up with the talents, if you like what you see and the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and also the notification bell thingy, because we need to appease the YouTube overlords and we don't want them mad at us now, do we? On the first row, Enlightenment will be your raid option for mana recovery. Raid fights, and we're talking bosses here, last way longer, especially if you are progressing, and mana will tend to be an issue for healers. Managing it will be part of your rotation, and this talent will help you with that. In dungeons, however, mana is less of an issue because fights are quicker and you have time to drink in between pulls, so you go with Trail of Light. This lets you heal target A, then target B, and target A will still get 35% of the heal target B is getting, because we love to share our love with everybody, especially when everybody is staying in the goddamn fire. On the second row, you take... Whoa! Did you see that? Did you see that? It was so fast. So it definitely wasn't a Holy Priest because you have no mobility. Until now. Angelic Feather has a straightforward role in your kit, and that is to get you or a member away from the bad. The bad is not good. Third row brings two options to the table, with the raid leaning towards Cosmic Ripple and leaning pretty hard. This talent provides your raid with passive free healing. Free in the sense that you don't spend mana for it, and since a lot of people will always have a bit of HP missing, this will work well into making you not have to constantly cast AoE spells. In dungeons that is not the case, and the damage spikes can be rougher. Guardian Angel aims to solve that, since the cooldown it affects is used to keep a member, usually the tank, alive, and it will and should rarely proc its death effect, meaning that this talent will benefit you a lot into getting more Guardian Spirits out. On the fourth row, you get some utility options because we want to be more than just dishing out heals, man. Shining Force is probably one of the strongest CC in the game, or at least the strongest you will have. It essentially pushes mobs away from you, and you can use it to help your tank kite, interrupt multiple casts, and so on. It works well in raids where the mobs can and should be pushed away, but you will see more out of this in dungeons. The other viable option is Censure, transforming your Chastise into a single target stun. This can be good if your group is missing stuns, but usually this side is covered in most groups. Moving on to some AoE healing, the fifth row has some viable options, but our recommendation will remain at Circle of Healing as the most efficient one for both raids and dungeons. The heal is instant and cheap on mana, which already ticks all the boxes a raider healer could want. This also works really well in dungeons where you have to move more often, or simple counteract bursty AoE damage to your party members. Some people like to use Surge of Light in dungeons. Fair enough, it serves similar purposes, but addressing Flash of Light, which already has a cast time as long as your GCD, and having it be free isn't as amazing since mana and mythics is not that big of a deal. We talked about this. Down on the sixth row, you take Halo in raids. This bad boy is a bomb of an AoE heal, with an insane radius rarely not being enough to hit everything that moves. Yeah, cause it deals damage as well, fool! Careful when using it in open spaces, since you can pull extra trash and that's Flame's job. You need to be better. In dungeons, go and play with Divine Star. Keep in mind that this hits targets in a line both friendly and aggressive. It also does a round trip back for more healing and damage, and because dungeons are a bit more packed, it should be easier to use but still require a bit of positioning on your part. Last row is the big cheese. Holy World Salvation is the dev's way of saying, if your raid looks like it's dying, press the button here and they will stop looking like they're dying and start looking like they will survive instead. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's a massive AoE heal that applies a bunch of hots as well, with a massive cooldown to boot. But hey, don't let that fool you, because you will be reducing its cooldown consistently as you play your specs mechanics. So realistically, it's a 4 to 5 minute cooldown, which is more than reasonable. The dungeon version is Apotheosis, an average cooldown that buffs your holy wards to come back quicker and be free. And since the holy wards are both offensive and defensive, you can use this skill in multiple scenarios based on the encounter. But enough about talents, let's check some stats. Starting out your holy journey, you need your attire to look presentable okay, because we need that good impression. Your attire should be at the highest item level possible, and this will be your main criteria when choosing your gear. Eye level is a combination of intellect, which is great, and a pool of stats that are better when there's a lot of them. Sockets and the leech stat will be your next determining factor because, well, sockets means more stats, while leech works well for healers that weave in a damage skill here and there between heals, since leech heals you from both sources and costs 0 mana. But if we get to the actual secondary stats after all this talk, in raids go with mastery, followed by crit and versatility. Specifically because your mastery helps your heals leave a hut on the target that gets stronger with each new cast. The extra healing helps you preserve mana, which again, like we talked about before, is important in raids. In dungeons, you want thick heals and fast heals since the pacing of the combat is more alert. Critical strike, haste, and versatility will shine above all else since they answer that exact request. And moving forward, you should have an easier time choosing gear, especially things like rings and trinkets, but don't worry, we got you covered with some of the best trinkets as well. In raids, you want Luminous Jellyweed and Deferred Sentence. Both of them drop from the raid bosses and both seem to perform the best among all other options in the game. They drop from the Underwater Behemoth and the Queen's Card bosses respectively, so it could take a bit for you to get them. There are replacements, however, and a popular one is the Alchemist Stone trinket that you can use if you haven't started looting the bosses. In dungeons, you can keep the same trinkets, although you will find it possible to squeeze more damage in since it's actually required sometimes. If you want to be a bit more angry, you can replace one of the healing trinkets with the Mechagon Cyclotronic Blast Red Punch card thingy. This is essentially an on-demand single-target burst DPS that works well when you get more comfortable with the spec and can afford dropping some throughput. Moving on to traits, Holy Priests are not that reliant on specific traits, and it does come down on the raw amount of power you get from one piece, secondaries included. Ideally, in raids you want strong generic stat traits like Loyal to the End, provided of course for other people use it as well, or Blightboard Infusion and Swirling Sands. These are a few of the strongest examples, but not the only good ones. The holy specific traits are a bit niche, since they affect their respective spells, so it comes down to how you play the class. Prayer of Litany, Word of Mending, and Blessed Sanctuary can be taken, with Prayer being an option you can even stack, while the others are good as one-offs. In dungeons, the argument is similar. Stat traits will provide a lot of strength, while the holy options revolve around Permeating Glow, which can be stacked up to 3 times, and Promise of Deliverance also stacked if you lack better options. For secondaries, options like Concentrated Mending, Blessed Portents, and Resounding Protection are going to be good in almost any scenario, while keeping in mind what we discussed about stats and stat traits. It might seem a bit overwhelming, but in reality, you have more freedom to choose gear and even play with multiple options, more than can be said about almost all other specs in the game. So go nuts, you crazy bastard! Last but not least, essences. It's what you came here for, right? No? Well, we're gonna talk about them anyway, so sit down and listen. You ideally want to have these at rank 3, and if you don't, it's probably better to just equip your highest rank essences until you can unlock some of the other stronger ones. In raids, such strong essence can be Lifebinder's Invocation as a major, giving you a raid-wide hot spread, again working in tandem with the multitude of trickling AoE heals you already have in your arsenal. Your minors can be Well of Existence and the Ever-Rising Tide, both very strong and solid choice for any healer, but especially good for you since we talked about trickles of passive AoE healing that often can risk overhealing, an issue solved by Well. And also, mana issues, no longer a concern with the ever-rising tide. For mythic pluses, Vitality Conduit will be one of your best major. Its effect helps with keeping a single target top, which will be your tank for most of the time, as Miners, Well of Existence, and Memory of Lucid Dreams will help you with mana, self-heal, and versatility buffs. All good in dungeons where you never know what can happen. When in raids, you want to prioritize your spells based on what's also needed by your group, starting with Holy Word Sanctify when tight groups of players need healing. Holy Word Serenity on a single injured ally is next on the list. Circle of Healing becomes third most important when you have 4 allies that can benefit from the heal. Use Prayer of Meaning on cooldown after this. Cast Halo if most of your raid needs healing. Flash heal on emergency situations when someone is getting close to dying. Prayer of Healing for standard multi-target healing, while Heal is for standard single-target healing. Cast Renew next on the list only if you have to move and your raid needs healing. And fill in with smites when there's nothing else to do. This is basically a list to give you an idea of the most important spells to cast, hopefully clarifying the strength and importance of said spells as well. In dungeons, we can also talk about a priority of spells to be cast based on their importance. Holy Word Serenity is on top of the list for one injured party member. Next up is Holy Word Sanctify when more of all members are injured. Flash Heal is third and should be used in emergency situations. Cast Divine Star if more people can benefit from the heal, and after that, Circle of Healing if you still need AoE healing for your group. Next up, Flash Heal for standard healing by swapping targets to benefit from the Trail of Light. Use Prayer of Healing when your whole group is injured, followed in importance by Prayer of Mending if you need less AoE healing. Lastly, Renew again if you have to move and still need to heal your group. Fill in with Smite otherwise if no healing is required. What makes Holy Priest special is the Holy Words mechanic. These spells are very strong heals with large cooldowns that get reduced by casting their respective spells. You naturally do this as you play your rotation, but it's good to understand that depending on the type of damage your group is taking or will be taking, you might want to work towards a specific Holy Word. Serenity for a single target and Sanctify for AoE. That comes with practice, but it is what makes this spec unique and fun. Not to mention you have Holy Word Chastise as a decent damage dealer and CC option. As for the cooldowns, we already discussed Guardian Spirit in the talent section, and the rest of the cooldowns are pretty straightforward. Divine Hymn is good to heal your group for big chunks, but even better if your group will keep on taking damage afterwards so you can benefit from the added healing. Symbol of Hope is a mana regen cooldown that will probably use more in raids since the channel time is almost never a good thing in dungeons to do. When you aim at enchanting, gemming, and generally buffing yourself, you can go for mastery favored or crit favored options. Since crit is a good choice for both content, we will look at these consumables, but feel free to change and replace them accordingly. Take a Cord of Critical Strike for your rings, but before taking the Deadly Lava Lucily gem, make sure you have the Leviathan's Eye and Kraken's Eye of Intellect. The amount of stats gained from these gems will outclass the secondary stat variants most of the time. For the weapon, take Machinist's Brilliance as the overall best option that will proc with your highest secondary stat, of which you can control to your other consumables. The flask is always going to be Endless Fathoms. The potion department is bigger for you with Potion of Replenishment for mana regen and Superior Battle Potion of Intellect for intense healing phases or damage dealing phases if that's your game. Lastly, the food will be a feast by default, although we understand if times are hard and gold is in short supply. We got you! McDowell's Big Mac will always fill your belly with juicy crit. Although we covered what we consider the basics of Holy Priest, there's a whole lot holy goodness out there, and the best place to visit is the Warcraft Priest Discord channel. I mean, there's a whole bunch of experienced Holy Priests there, some of who helped us with this guide as well, which are more than happy to answer all of your questions and get even more in-depth information. As always, I like to take the time to give a special thank you to all of our Patreons, including the new ones. We see y'all, especially in these times, scary times. You guys make a lot of this worthwhile and help us a bunch with all of the work here. So thank you so much. And hey, if you want to be a Patreon, check the link in the description. Maybe you'll find something you like. That being said, thank you so much for watching the video. I wish you lovely bastards happy healing. See you in the next one.
Never thought I'd meet someone